Hello everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. This is a review of the pilot episode for the new Superman and Lois show on the CW. Now, there will be spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it yet, you may want to watch that and then come back. I don't watch a lot of the CW superhero shows. I just find it hard to enjoy them. Their target audience seems to be 13-year-old girls, and they write the shows accordingly. Instead of action and adventure, the emphasis seems to be more on feels, and the characters spend as much time talking about how they feel as they do actually doing anything. And there's a pretty clear feminist slant to these shows as well. On The Flash, Barry can't seem to do anything without Iris around to tell him what to do and how to do it. And when Superman ever appears on Supergirl, Superman is always telling her how much better she is at being super than he is, and how he wishes he could be more like her. It gets a bit much after a while. I won't even talk about Batwoman. That show is so bad, it's laughable. And then there are those ads for the show that just kind of crack me up because it looks like they're on one of those house flipping shows on A&E or Lifetime or whatever network it is. I don't even know. But it looks like the show should be called Farm Flippers or This Old Fortress or something like that. The show starts with a montage of the key moments in Superman's life. There's his arrival on Earth, there's his powers developing, there's his first appearance as Superman, there's him meeting Lois for the first time, then there's their wedding, and then there's them becoming parents. They have twin sons. They've got Jonathan and Jordan, and Jonathan is kind of a jock, and he's very easygoing and fun-loving. But Jordan is temperamental and hyper-emotional, and he has social anxiety disorder. Then we get into the plot, and it starts with Superman preventing a reactor meltdown. Lois's father, General Sam Lane, is there. Why he's there and not the cops, I don't know, but okay, whatever. And he uses a signal device to alert Superman, and Superman arrives to prevent the meltdown. After stopping the meltdown, Superman mentions that the damage to the reactor was just like another reactor recently, and the meltdown appears to have been caused by sabotage. Now, General Lane knows that Superman is his son-in-law, Clark Kent, and he suggests taking the twins fishing, and Superman says he'll ask the boys about it, and then he heads home to talk to the boys. The boys are starting high school in the morning, and Jonathan has been made the starting QB for the football team, which is kind of a big deal because he's a freshman, and normally freshmen don't get to be the starter, so he's all excited about that. And then the other son, Jordan, had a behavioral therapy session that Clark was supposed to be at earlier, but Clark missed it, and he's apologetic to Jordan, but Jordan's very moody, and he just wants to play video games. He's playing Mortal Kombat versus DC, and it's actually got Raiden and Superman up on the screen fighting, and Clark says, "Hey, you make a pretty good Superman," and Jordan's like, "Yeah, whatever, old man, Superman is super lame, I'm playing Raiden." It's one of those scenes where the parent tries to connect with their child who just really isn't interested, and it is interesting. It's different seeing Superman struggling to communicate with his kid. And the kids, they don't know that he is Superman, so they just treat him like any other kid would treat their parent, kind of, rolling their eyes and just being like, yeah, whatever. Then he calls Martha, and Martha tells him that he really needs to be around for his family more often, but then she starts feeling unwell, so Clark tells her to go ahead and get some rest. The following day, Lois and Clark debate whether to tell the twins the truth. Lois wants to tell them, but Clark is reluctant, as he worries that doing so might make Jordan feel even more, alienated than he already does, so to speak. Then they go to the Daily Planet, and we find out that Morgan Edge has bought the planet, and lots of people are being fired as they reduce staff. Then we find out that Clark is one of the people who's been fired, and Lois is upset about it, and she says that Edge is ruining the planet. Then Clark gets a phone call, and suddenly he flies away to Smallville, and we learn that Martha has died of a stroke. This scene's actually quite well done, and actually it's very moving. I think Tyler Hoechlin plays this scene very well. Smallville is portrayed a little more realistically here. The town is dying, pretty much. Main Street is empty. We find out that most of the people Clark knew as a kid have moved away, and then we find out later that some people have even turned to dealing meth in order to make ends meet. There's a funeral for Martha, and then we meet Lana Lang, who's now married and has 2 daughters. The twins have met the daughters before, and Jordan likes the older daughter, Sarah. Then Lana's husband, Kyle, says that Morgan Edge is investing in the town. He's going to retrofit the coal mines to produce alternative energy. Okay, so how you retrofit a coal mine, I don't really know. I think maybe he means he's going to install clean burning power plants to use the coal, maybe. I know that's an actual thing, but yeah, retrofitting a coal mine doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Lana's husband is all for it as it will bring jobs to the town, but Lois is opposed to it because she thinks Morgan Edge really just can't be trusted. Then the twins and Sarah go to the barn, and Jordan has an accident and he falls off a ladder, and then some pipes fall down on top of him, but Jonathan dives on top of Jordan to protect him. They both turn out to be unharmed, and Jordan wants to know why they weren't injured in this accident, but Jonathan really isn't concerned about it. Then Clark and Lois have another talk about telling them the truth, but Clark is still opposed to it. He's still worried that they won't react well, so they decide not to tell them for now. Then General Lane arrives, and he shows Clark some surveillance footage from the reactor, which shows a figure moving at super speed. And there's a message that was left behind that is written in Kryptonian, which is directed at Kal-El, so the person responsible knows who Superman is. Then General Lane suggests that Clark suit up and investigate, but Lois is opposed to it, and Clark reluctantly agrees with her. Then General Lane tells Lois that she may have married Clark, but she also married Superman, and Superman can't have a normal life. This is kind of an annoying scene because Clark just can't make up his own mind. First, he wants to go investigate, but then Lois tells him he can't leave his family now, and Clark then just sort of hangs his head and says, yeah, okay, I guess you're right, because the hero can't make up his own mind, apparently. The following day, Clark and Lois go to the bank to meet with Lana, who works there, and they find out that Martha took out a second mortgage on the farm to help some local people who were struggling financially, and the bank is going to take possession of the property if Clark can't pay it off. Meanwhile, the twins go back to the barn because Jordan is still looking for an explanation for why they weren't injured in the accident. They find the cellar, and then they find Clark's space pod. When Clark and Lois get back to the farm, the twins confront them, and Clark tells them the truth. Of course, they don't believe it, so Clark lifts a truck to prove it to them. Jordan is angry because he thinks his behavioral issues are due to being part alien, and instead of telling him the truth, they let him think that he was crazy and put him on behavioral meds instead. I actually sympathize with Jordan here. They really should have come clean about this and told him the truth sooner. Clark feels guilt because he didn't tell them before, and he feels like he's failing as a father. But then there's another reactor that's in danger, so he has to leave and go deal with that. Jordan attends a party that some local kids are having, and he meets with Sarah. She knows that he's on behavioral medication, and she tells him about the town and about how it's in bad shape, and some of the people in the town have depression because of it. Then she reveals that she attempted suicide about a year earlier, and she's been in therapy ever since, and Jordan feels a connection with her, I guess, because they both have emotional issues, so he kisses her, which her boyfriend doesn't like very much, and then he attacks Jordan. Then Jonathan shows up and he gets into it with the boyfriend, and then another kid attacks Jordan and a big fight breaks out. Meanwhile, the mystery villain flies away from the reactor, and Superman pursues him up into orbit. The character is wearing some kind of armor, and none of Superman's powers seem to affect him. Plus, he's able to physically overpower Superman. He claims to be an alien like Superman, although he doesn't say what world he's from, but the clear implication is that he's Kryptonian. Then he stabs Superman in the chest with a piece of kryptonite and then leaves him to fall back to Earth. Back at the party, Jordan becomes angry and his heat vision activates and causes an explosion. Lois sees a news report on the explosion and then she uses a signal device to alert Superman. And he manages to pull the kryptonite from his chest and stop his fall, and then he flies back to Smallville. With Jordan now manifesting his powers, Clark suggests to Lois that they live on the farm, and she agrees. They meet with Lana and tell her that they plan to stay and keep the farm, and then Lois reveals that the bank Lana works for was bought by Morgan Edge, and he's using it to buy up all the local farms, but they don't know why. At the end, we get a scene with the armored figure who flies to some kind of base in the mountains somewhere. He enters, and then he says that the armor needs to be improved if we're going to end this. A computer voice then responds that they will need to get more kryptonite as well, and then addresses the figure as Captain Luthor. And the episode ends there. This was a pretty solid start to the series. The cast is fine overall. Tyler Hoechlin is pretty good as Superman. I've had mixed feelings about him in the past. One thing that helps is that he has a new suit, and it makes him look more muscled up than he was before. I think it's pretty clearly kind of modeled after Cavill's suit. And I like the suit. I think it's pretty good. I wish the S was a little bit bigger. And I think that the more bulk on him, it's clearly from the suit, I think, more than from the actor. But it makes him look more impressive. One of the problems I've had with Hoechlin as Superman is that he seemed a bit small for the role. When you see him during that Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover that aired last year, standing next to Brandon Routh as Superman, he looks kind of puny. So I'm glad they're making him look a little bit bigger. Also, I liked the shot of him in the throwback costume. It kind of looks like that suit that Superman had in the Fleischer cartoons back in the 1940s. I always thought that Hoechlin made a better Clark than he does a Superman, and since the emphasis on this show is the family drama stuff, I think that works to Hoechlin's advantage, as he spends more time as Clark than he does as Superman. Elizabeth Tulloch is fine as Lois. I'd like to see more of her reporter side in order to better judge her performance in the role. When she's appeared in the past on other CW shows, she really hasn't been given a whole lot to do, but she's likable in the role, and she has good chemistry with Hoechlin. The actors playing the two sons are fine. Jordan is appropriately angsty. Personally, I'm not really interested in the teen angst stuff, but again, this stuff is aimed at tweens, so I guess that's just to be expected. General Lane is played by Dylan Walsh. Walsh is a veteran actor. He's been in a lot of shows and TV. He's fine in the role, but he really isn't given much to do here, really. It'll be interesting to see how his character develops, because in the comics, he and Superman tend to have a contentious relationship, with him always trying to get Superman to serve the military's objectives. Of course, the big hook for this show is that Clark and Lois are now parents who are raising twin sons. Superman and Lois do have a son named Jonathan in the comics, so it was a bit surprising when I found out they were going to have two sons on this show. Why have two sons instead of just the one? So I think the reason they're doing this is so that down the line, one of the sons can turn evil or go crazy or something like that, and then turn against the family. Perhaps he'll be manipulated by Luthor or something like that. Jordan seems like the obvious choice, but they might make it Jonathan just to subvert expectations or something. The figure in the armor, who is Luthor, or a Luthor of some sort, mentions that his world was destroyed and he's the last survivor, kind of like Superman. And of course, he blames Superman for his world being lost. This show is kind of a spin-off from the Crisis crossover that they did on the CW shows last year. So I wonder if this version of Luthor isn't going to turn out to be from one of the Earths that was destroyed during that event. That would explain his claims about being from a world that was destroyed and now he's the last survivor. It also would explain why he's black. This is a Luthor from a parallel universe, I guess. Now, I've noticed that a lot of other people who are doing reviews of the show talking about how it's a nice change because the show isn't woke and all that. Well, there's a bit of it in there. Clark doesn't want to tell the boys the truth, and then Lois does, and of course in the end she's proven right, and he's proven wrong, because the father can't be right on one of these shows. Another thing that stuck out to me was the portrayal of Lana's husband, Kyle. So at one point when Lois is talking about all the people being fired at the planet, Kyle says, well, the paper might be doing better if your paper wasn't so politically biased. And obviously he's supposed to be a conservative. And of course, since he's a conservative, he's kind of portrayed as an obnoxious jerk. And that was kind of annoying. But, he's at least not being portrayed as an outright villain. So I guess that's an improvement. And he is the local fire chief, I believe, the chief of the local fire department. So he is cast in a somewhat heroic role in that way. So, I guess it's better than nothing. Another thing that worried me about this show was who was going to be playing Luthor. Because, as far as I know, this is happening in the same universe that Supergirl is in. And on that show, John Cryer plays Lex Luthor. And I've just never really bought him as Lex Luthor. He's more like Soy Luthor. And Luthor is supposed to be dangerous, intimidating, and John Cryer is none of those things. I mean, seriously, this guy playing Lex Luthor? Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. The funny thing is, of course, is that John Cryer played Lenny Luthor, Lex Luthor's dimwit nephew, in Superman 4 back in the late 80s. So in my head, that's actually the character he's playing. This isn't Lex Luthor. He's playing Lenny Luthor, who's now grown up, and Lex died, I guess, and so he's inherited the company. But anyway, it looks like this other guy is going to be playing Luthor instead, so we're not going to have to suffer through John Cryer. So like I said, the show does get off to a pretty solid start. I do give this a thumbs up. I do recommend it. Now, will the wokeness start to seep into the show going forward? It might. It's happened before. A show starts out okay and then goes downhill. But at least for now, this is a show worth watching. So let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you found this video informative, please hit the like button. Also, please sub to the channel and hit the bell for notifications, and thanks for watching.